As a racer, the goal is to win. To cross the finish line in first is something we dream of, and we work hard to try and achieve this, but sometimes it might just not be enough. Going into the race, the goal was no different, but it put us through tests and trials that we had to try and overcome to the best of our abilities. Welcome to the 6 hours of Indianapolis. As a pro sim racer at a high level, expectations are high from your team as well as yourself. You know, I set a very high standard for myself, and if I'm not able to overgo that standard, it can be quite tough for me. I think we all have that in one way or another. It might be school or work or fitness, but for me it's sim racing and content. That's why it's important for me to do well in big events, to be on the pace, and to know that you've put in the hours leading up to the race so you're as close to your potential as possible.
It's going to be interesting how we get on with 3 classes of competition rolling out for qualifying right now.
When you're qualifying, there isn't room for mistakes, especially at a track like Indy. With a few corners the track has, every corner is important to nail spot on. Lap times are only 1 minute and 15 seconds, meaning that the whole field will be split by just tenths of a second. My teammate Aaron did the qualifying, but unfortunately a slightly scruffy lap cost him a couple of tenths, putting us down in P9 for the start of the race. This set the stakes for the race start. It's never fun being in the midfield, as that's always the most chaotic and hectic start to a race. It's just about survival, as the race is 6 hours long. If our pace is good enough, we should be able to make our way into the position we should be in anyways. The nerves and the tension is high as we get ready to go racing for the Indy 6hr. You can see there are cars everywhere around Aaron. The focus you need to have at this part of the race is insane.
Ready to go though, as the pace car is off and away. 3 classes of competition and all going to go green at the very same time. We rumble our way towards the yard of bricks. 6 hours on the clock and let's go racing. But it's been a safe start for the prototypes leading. Also a relatively tiny run down to turn 1 for the LMP2 cars. All things considered, a nice and tiny jump across of the field.
You can see my teammate already starting to make moves on the first lap of the race, but the competition is fierce. It's not that easy to get an overtake done when the whole field is running in a slipstream train. However, some traffic might throw a spanner in the mix, which is exactly what it does. Overtaking attempts are happening all of the time, but it's a super difficult track to actually complete a pass on. Battling is fierce and everyone's trying to find their place. We've been battling with the red car for some laps instead of making moves ahead, but it was just a question of time before the race would settle down and it wouldn't be as chaotic. As it all calmed down, the race was starting to get more orderly. Aaron was able to get into a good flow and start putting his secret weapon into use. The amazing race pace allowed him to get right up behind the red car and make a move to finally get past him, running side by side through the first 2 corners, but eventually claiming the position around the outside of turn 2. The charge was on and instantly Aaron started to find gaps and overtaking opportunities that would allow him to slip through. Around the outside here and down the inside there, Aaron was on fire. As he made another move down the inside of the first corner, we were officially P4 and it wouldn't stop there. Aaron was so fast that he quickly pulled away from the car behind and just started catching up to the next car in line. And guess what? It became his turn too. With an unexpectedly beautiful move into the final corner, he put us into P3. Flying.
Aaron Vasquez is only 2.7 seconds off the lead. He started down in 9th position. What a drive so far. And in that 199, he's sharing driving responsibilities in a 3-driver lineup. So not sure we're going to see too much more of Aaron Vasquez outside of a triple stint, 2 hours for him. Marcus Solholm, Danny Shivy Shabo, the other 2 drivers, he's got some pretty good teammates to try and push this car forward as well.
He was putting on the entertainment not just for us, but for the broadcast and everyone else in the race, putting on an impressive performance. If you want to be as good as Aaron one day, it takes a lot of time, and one way of fast tracking that is through coaching. which is where I want to talk about today's sponsor, Trophy.ai. If you're interested in getting faster through coaching but maybe don't have the money to spend on it, Trophy.ai could be the perfect solution for you. Not only does it have a literal AI coach that can help you find time and that'll talk to you while you're practicing like an actual coach, it also speaks multiple languages.
Let's have a great session.
No way! That's so cool. On top of that, it can compare your telemetry data to experts and show you exactly what you're able to improve on in one of the most intuitive ways I think I've seen. Testing and trying out Trophy.ai, I was quite surprised at its features. It actually felt like I was in a coaching session without a time limit, with live data, and at a much cheaper price. I've also put in a lap at Indy in the Olympi 2, so if you want to directly compare with me, you can do that by heading to the link in the description and getting yourself signed up. Thanks to Trophy.ai for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to the race. As Aaron went on for a second stint, he kept on putting down good and fast lap times. He was slowly getting closer and closer to P2, however this position wasn't as easy as the other ones. The top two also seemed to have really good pace, which meant Aaron had to push if he wanted to make up another position. As he was getting close, the second place car pitted in, and we realized that not everyone was on the same strategy as us. We were fuel saving, as we had calculated that we could skip a short stop at the end of the race if we just fuel saved throughout the 6 hours. These guys were not on that same strategy, and as it turned out, almost no one else were fuel saving to skip the stop except for one other team, the current leaders. The car that had seemed just out of reach until now had also seen the same opportunity as us, which meant that if we wanted to win, we would have to do it on the track and not through strategy. As Aaron came in to end off his stint, it was time for my second teammate to get in the car. We refueled, changed tires and drivers, and sent him off. Fortunately, we emerged from the stop in P2, which meant we had gained a position and just had to try and focus ahead, once again though with P1 just out of reach. Danny got in the car and did like he always does, stay consistent and fast throughout the stint, taking good care of the tires and fuel to make sure we would stay on the fuel saving strategy that we were on. It wasn't completely clean, however, with a couple of close moments that could have ended wrong for us, but fortunately didn't. Firstly, a bit of argy-bargy into the first corner, and a lap later contact with one of the Williams GT3s, sending him to the runoff. This also meant that we'd lose P2 due to the bad run out of the chicane, putting us back onto the bottom step of the podium. However, this wouldn't last long, as Danny was quickly able to go for an overtaking move, sending it around the outside and actually reclaiming second place before our competitor dived into the pits for that earlier pit stop.
Round the outside in towards the new chicane sequence, and that might be just enough for third place or second place even.
Things were looking interesting. Who was gonna win, and would everyone make it to the finish line in one piece? With almost 4 hours remaining, everything could still happen. Our pace was very similar to the leaders, however they just had that small hundredths of a second every lap that kept us just out of striking distance. Danny was pushing everywhere, even on the pit entry, making an overtake on a slower GT3 car to optimize every little time loss he could, but it just didn't seem like enough. The leading car was not more than 10 or 15 seconds ahead, but it felt like an eternity. It was time for me to get in the car, and I got in feeling comfortable due to having a decent amount of prep before the race.
Before we get to GTD, apparently we've got LMP2 pit stops to talk about. Second place has come on in the Apex Racing team, making their way to the box.
Absolutely, so that is the 199 machine. Of course, you saw Soham get in that car.
Pace and consistency was looking fine, but I was mainly focused on making sure I hit the correct fuel saving target so we could stay on the strategy that we committed to from the start. At one point I even found a fast lap down car that was pushing flat out, which meant I could just sit behind him for majority of the stint and fuel save. My stint went pretty alright, but nothing like Aaron's mega stint early in the race. At the same time, our previous rival for P2 had picked up the pace as they realized they could no longer make the fuel saving strategy work, so they just went flat out, pushing every braking zone as late as possible, while I was lifting off more than 100 meters early going into some corners. On top of that, I wasn't exactly fortunate with traffic either, having lost some time avoiding incidents in traffic, but we still managed to stay with our main rival. As time went by, we were nearing the end of the race. P1 was still just out of reach and Danny got in the car to finish off the race.
Danny Chivisciabo is back into the car.
I think at this point we had realized that the win was out of our hands. The only way we could cross the finish line in first was if the leaders were to have an incident or make a big mistake, but that wasn't likely to happen at this stage of the race. The battle for second place was still on though, with our beloved yellow and blue rival making a move for second place. However, this was fine with us as we knew they were gonna have to make an extra stop. And would you happen to guess what happens next? They go into the pits for a final short pit stop, having not fuel saved, which meant we were chilling comfortably in P2.
A 6-hour race strategy may not seem important, but clearly there are some teams that figured out something from the start. Of those up front, BS Plus, Nexus, Apex Racing, only 3 in the LMP2 class, cluing themselves into the strategy right from the drop.
Going on to the final lap, almost 6 hours after the intense start from P9, we managed to complete the final lap and cross the finish line in P2. So close, yet so far away. While finishing second place in a top split race like this is not a bad achievement at all, we're still the first losers, which in situations like this makes you wonder what could have been. Unfortunately, we just weren't the fastest car on track that day, and I want to congratulate BS Plus Nexus for pulling off a flawless race and taking home a deserved win. For us, we'll just have to work harder if you want to win next time. We'll just have to find another 5,000ths of a second every lap, and the story could have been completely different. For now, we did what we could. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. I've been Marcus, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.